Greetings, Tigers. On behalf of CSG, the Council on Science and Technology, and USG, Undergraduate Student Government, welcome to Princeton's inaugural i3 Hackathon. We're so happy that you could join us today as you take your first step towards creating something meaningful and exciting. My name is Aaron, and I'm one of the student organizers for the hackathon. What drew me to organize the hackathon could be summarized by our unofficial motto: transcending physical boundaries through digital creation. Now, I'd interpret this in two ways. One being the ability for your hackathon creations to bridge the physical gap and bring communities together through innovative ideas and platforms. And the second, from a more meta perspective, is the ability for the hackathon itself to bring all of you together, channeling our efforts towards things we're passionate about and building our very own Princeton community in the process. Here, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Sami Khan, Executive Director of CST, who will be talking about CST's mission, values, and some more opportunities for you to get involved.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the i3 Hackathon. My name is Sami Khan, and I'm the Executive Director of the Council on Science and Technology, or CST, at Princeton University. We are so thrilled to be hosting this event along with Princeton's undergraduate student government, because the innovation and collaboration and formation of community around STEM that's about to happen at this event is exactly what CST promotes at Princeton. We develop and support amazing courses and workshops that connect STEM to the arts and humanities and social sciences. We also sponsor exciting events year-round, like this hackathon, that welcome everyone regardless of their experience or concentration. And if you're a student at Princeton, we offer internships, jobs, funding for projects, and even the ability to take a leadership role by participating on the CST Student Advisory Board. I hope you'll want to learn more about us by going to the website at cst.princeton.edu or checking us out on our social media. We're at Princeton CST on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks so much for joining us at the hackathon. Design something wonderful and have a great time.
Thanks so much to Sami for speaking with us about CST. I would also like to talk about our co-sponsor, USG. As a representative of the student body, one of USG's aims is to support the undergraduate experience by organizing events that foster a sense of community. The hackathon allows USG to provide students the space and resources necessary to take ownership and directly address their concerns through self-driven innovation. As such, USG has provided the unique opportunity for i3 projects to earn Tiger App's eligibility and potentially become a Tiger App. A project is eligible if it is both a web-based application and Princeton-specific. Please note that there is no expectation for you to have a Tiger Apps ready project by the end of the hackathon, considering many past Tiger Apps have been incubated through intensive classes like Coast 333. However, any project that has gone through the i3 Hackathon is still Tiger Apps eligible in the future, meaning even if you do not have a complete product, we encourage you to continue working with your team after the hackathon's conclusion to complete and polish your project for the Tiger Apps application process. Next, I'm super excited to introduce our featured i3 Hackathon speaker, Professor John Danner. Professor Danner is a trusted advisor, teacher, author, and speaker, and has spent decades helping senior business, nonprofits, and government executives all over the world navigate rapidly changing environments. As an entrepreneurship specialist and lecturer at Princeton, Professor Danner has shared his expertise on areas like business model innovation and using entrepreneurship to address global poverty. Using a few historical guests, Professor Danner elegantly paints a picture of how hackathons and entrepreneurship could play a role in shaping your future thinking about life and the bigger picture.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Princeton's i3 Hackathon. Ideate, iterate, innovate. The organizers asked me to do some brief welcoming remarks. I thought it might be appropriate to do that in the context of Princeton's own tradition of ideation, iteration, and innovation as one of the world's premier liberal arts colleges. So in addition to offering some of my own thoughts, I thought I might also call on the wisdom of 4 notable people from different fields. What is it that James Joyce, Madame Curie, Nikola Tesla, and William Shakespeare might offer as words of wisdom as you go forth with this new and exciting adventure over the course of the next day or so? Stay tuned. Good evening and welcome again. Particularly a welcome to those of you who are incoming freshmen. I know this isn't how you anticipated starting your freshman year in college, but on the other hand, this hackathon is a great metaphor for exactly what your next 4 years are probably going to be about, which is trying to tackle and think about important problems of interest to you with solutions that nobody's thought of yet, other than you and the folks that you collaborate with. So you might want to treat this next day or so as a compressed version of what your learning Odyssey might be about at Princeton. I'm John Danner. I teach 2 courses at Princeton each fall. One is a freshman seminar on failure, and the other is an upper class course called Designing Ventures to Change the World, about how entrepreneurship can tackle issues. And this fall, we're going to be looking specifically at COVID and what entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, and others can do to help the world figure out how to create new value and new patterns and new models. Again, think of it as a hackathon, but admittedly over a full semester. So the themes of this are ideate, iterate, and innovate. Ideate. Think about James Joyce. What did this guy do? He basically realized that people don't think in complete sentences. They think in a kind of stream of consciousness. And that's probably a pretty good suggestion for those of you embarking on this first phase of the hackathon. Ideate, brainstorming, coming up with lots and lots of ideas. Some of them may seem crazy. Some of them may seem just completely bizarre. Some of them may be too narrow, too big, too ill prepared, too poorly thought out. That's okay. You want to start off casting a very wide net initially, because oftentimes it's the surprising collision between ideas that create the real spark of insight that leads you to great solutions. So think about opening up your team's ideas. Put the censor aside, put the critic aside. No bad ideas early on. You want as many ideas to tackle the issues of this hackathon as you can come up with. The more the merrier. And then start to sift, then start to see what the connections are, what the patterns are. And that may get you to a point where you've benefited from the diverse ways of thinking that are reflected by the members of your team, and get something that is the best distillation of what each of you can contribute to that particular phase of the hackathon. Now, iterate. Iterate is a very simple word. What it fundamentally says is, we don't know what the answer is yet. Nobody does. That's what the scientific method is all about, right? Madame Curie. Wow, Madame Curie. You know, in some ways, she had to get her physics training through adversity in something called the floating university at the end of the 19th century, because women weren't allowed to study physics in male-only colleges. She essentially got her education through the underground, through this changing pattern of ad hoc classes in unusual places that changed from time to time. And out of that early training and the discipline and creativity and iteration that she brought to it, she was able to combine that experience into many of the innovations and discoveries that have transformed our world. And in the process, win 2 Nobel Prizes. And that's something that not even any Princeton faculty member can claim. So think about iteration. Think about being willing to try your ideas early on. See if they work. Rough prototype them. Figure out, talk to people, try them out. Ask one of your team members to be the devil's advocate and take it apart. Because you're probably not as smart as you think you are. Your idea is probably not as good as it could be. And you've got a limited amount of time in which to test that. So think about how many test and refinement cycles you can build into your schedules during this hackathon. your ultimate solution and idea is going to be much the better for that. Now, why did I put Tesla in that group? Well, not just because he's obviously another famous scientist, but because early on in his career, he had one very important disaster, and that is his laboratory burned up, and with it, all of his notes and all of his prototypes at the time. So the message there is keep track of the ideas that you have. Write them down. Take periodic pictures of them on your phone so that you don't forget them. And as you're going along, you might actually have one of your members document you as a mini documentary filmmaker might. I suspect that might be of some interest to you over the next months and years, and I suspect your parents might be kind of interested in seeing what a hackathon is all about as well. So try to avoid the disaster that befell Nikola Tesla. Now, innovate. Innovate is fundamentally about coming up with a solution that's better than the status quo. Because every innovator and every entrepreneur is fundamentally competing against one gigantic obstacle. And that's the status quo, the way things are. Your job in this hackathon, just like the job of an innovator in whatever field, is to improve on the status quo. Figure out a way to make things better that matter. You couldn't pick a set of issues that matter to more people close to you right now than the primary focus of this hackathon. How can you come up with solutions that make the Princeton community more vibrant, stronger, healthier, more supportive? And communities depend on trust. They depend on inclusion as well as reinforce identity. Yes, everybody here is competitive with one another. You wouldn't be at Princeton if you weren't or hadn't been up to this point in your lives. But a community is built first and foremost around reciprocity, around collaboration. How can you strike that balance between respecting one another's privacy and independent identity on the one hand, but do so in the context of a learning community and social community, especially in these times when we are distant from one another, both physically and electronically? How can you do that? What is it that might improve the day-to-day experience of students, of staff, of faculty, so that we are woven together in a stronger, more interdependent fabric of a community? You can do that. Technology can help. But technology by itself isn't going to be the answer. You need to think through what's the storyline? What's the way that you're going to help convince people, show people that the ideas that you've come up with are in fact going to be better than their status quo, is going to give them the kind of connection with other people, the kind of reinforcement, the sort of support, the collaboration that all of us depend upon as human beings. So Princeton is looking for your ideas. The Princeton community needs your solutions. And I think you're going to be surprised about the variety of concepts and ideas and technologies and models that each of you is going to come up with. My hope, regardless of whether you win or not in this particular hackathon, is that you keep thinking about these ideas, because nobody's figured this out yet. If there's ever an example of how the world has failed in terms of the status quo, we're living in it right now. We failed to prepare for COVID. We fail still to understand it. We fail to deal with it appropriately. We fail to anticipate its consequences. And we are searching for solutions to reestablish our communities, whether it's in our neighborhoods, our cities, our states, our countries, or our universities. So think about, in the ideation, James Joyce. It's brainstorming, it's stream of consciousness. Think about channeling your own James Joyce. Iteration. Get as many cycles as you can. Think like Madame Curie. Think like a scientist. Try it. Try a hypothesis. Test it. Be willing to scrap it and move on, but learn from each cycle of failure and discovery that you encounter. Don't lose your records. Don't cry in your soup the way I'm sure Nikola Tesla must have after his laboratory burned down. But why did I keep William Shakespeare as my fourth example of liberal arts contribution to this hackathon? Because at the end of the day, regardless of what your solution is, you're going to have to be willing to tell a story. You're going to have to be willing to make a connection to your audience, an emotional connection, a logical connection, maybe even a technological connection. But you're going to have to tell a story. And one of the interesting things about Shakespeare, not only was he a fabulous storyteller, dramatist, obviously, but did you know that Shakespeare actually invented about 10% of the words that he used in his works? Now think about that. That's a storyteller creating part of the vocabulary that he uses to actually tell the story. So be prepared to think more broadly about what your idea might consist of. Maybe you have an opportunity to change the vocabulary, to change the way of thinking, to change the conversation. But above all, have it make personal sense to the people whom you're trying to help. And I'll give you maybe an even simpler approach to that. What's the ow? What's the wow? What's the how? The ow is, what's the pain that you are trying to solve here? What specifically is the problem that you think your idea might satisfy, might cure? What is it about the Princeton community that is not working as well as you think it might? Be focused, be specific about it as you can. Be prepared to come up with examples. That's the ow. Then what's your wow? What is it about your idea that when people hear it or see it or try it or listen to it, their ears perk up? They say, tell me more. Tell me more. That sounds really interesting. That was interesting. I don't know what it was that I said there that triggered SIRI, but if I say that word, you know what's going to happen again, so I'm not going to say it. But let me go back to the wow factor. Be dramatic. Think big. Think bold. What is it that is going to make people who understand your idea get excited about it? Because that's what you want. That's what you need to have people be willing to try it and spread it by word of mouth. Hey, did you see this thing that this team came up with? You're not going to believe it. Wait till you try it. Then third, the how. How exactly are you going to make that solution real? It doesn't have to be fancy, but you need to be able to think through what the components are, what maybe a simple version of this might be, what entrepreneurs sometimes call the minimum viable product. In other words, the least complicated example of what you have in mind that might allow you and others to see whether or not it might work. And if you've been focused on the ow, and you've dazzled with your wow, and you've been thoughtful about the how, then guess what? At the end of this hackathon, you and your team might be willing to take a bow. Good luck. I'm looking forward to hearing and seeing what you come up with. See you later.
Thank you very much to Professor Danner for his words of wisdom and inspiration. Going into some hackathon logistics, after this video, we move to our Slack workplace. On the left-hand side, you'd see a few channels represented by hashtags. The general channel is a place where we make announcements about the event, and it's also a place for you to introduce yourself to others. The Looking for Group channel and Prompt channels are there to help hackers meet like-minded hackers, brainstorm ideas, and form teams. You could also meet others through Zoom by typing /Zoom in the Slack channel. As mentioned in our website FAQ, we recommend a group size of about 3 to 5 to have diverse skill sets, but also efficient communication. Nonetheless, feel free to work individually if you'd like. The Project Help channel is there for you to ask any questions about your project and resolve issues that may arise. We have dedicated code and design advisors on call to help you out. Our mission is to provide a positive experience for all our hackers. In order to do so, we have posted a code of conduct on our website, so please read it over carefully and let us know if you have any questions. Please remember to be respectful and considerate of one another, and to be open and accessible to less experienced hackers. And to the less experienced hackers, feel free to reach out to other hackers and teams to learn more and gain experience. Countless others have been in your place before. Regarding expectations, we don't have prescribed guidelines on where a project should be by the end of the hackathon. Project outcomes could range from a few sketches to a fully functioning prototype. This hackathon is not a contest, but rather an opportunity to meet new people, pursue your passions, learn new things, and have fun. To quote Professor Danner, the important part is to nail the ow, wow, and how, to clearly convey what you have done or intend to do, as well as describe how exactly your project addresses an issue or need. On that note, I'm happy to announce our 3 prompts that you are free to use when brainstorming ideas. 1, connecting students through shared interests, through matching algorithms or otherwise. 2, creating a centralized platform to increase student-to-student communication and event and resource visibility. And 3, creating a platform to help students stay organized, find answers, and navigate socially distant student life. Thank you for attending our hackathon kickoff. Please visit our Slack channel now to get things going and make something cool. See you there.